Fromland is one of the most terrifying fictional locations that I've ever seen, and that is all because of the monsters that casually walk around the place at nighttime just looking to find a new plaything, looking to find people that they can torture relentlessly, and they seemingly do all of that just for the fun of it. But something that's even scarier than that are all of the people that you end up getting trapped with in this town. There's been a lot of horrible moments in this show that were caused by the people themselves rather than the monsters. And a lot of these moments definitely made me wonder how terrified I would be if I was in that position as an experiencer rather than as an observer. So let's take a look at the worst From characters you could ever find yourself having the displeasure of being trapped with in Fromland. And in this scenario, let's assume it's only gonna be us and this other person. Starting off with the list is number 5, Kevin. If you've forgotten who this guy is, actually, there's no way you forgot who this guy is. He's too dumb of a person for either of us to ever forget who he is. Kevin managed to build up a relationship entirely in his head with one of the monsters, that of course being Jasmine. Kevin thought that he was going to have a very different experience that night than what he eventually ended up getting from Jasmine. He definitely expected a lot of fluids to be involved, but he was very wrong about where those fluids were going to be coming from. Kevin's naivete and plain out stupidity, as well as too much thinking with his lower brain, ended up getting dozens of people brutally slaughtered that night at Colony House. And it's all because he decided to open the window for Jasmine. While I can't blame a young man for getting hot-blooded and trying to get some sugar in this godforsaken place that is Fromland, I can definitely blame him for getting people killed. Being gullible, naive, and basically prime real estate for manipulation by the monsters, Kevin is clearly someone you'd end up regretting inviting into your hideout in Fromland. Number 4, Randall. Randall has been constantly causing trouble in the town and has shown himself to be a loose cannon repeatedly in the story. One of the most memorable scenes with Randall, and a great example of what I'm talking about, is when he randomly beats up some guy in Colony House because he found him going through his luggage. Despite being informed that sharing items is part of the rules of Colony House, Randall makes it clear that he doesn't care about following the rules or keeping the peace, going so far as to threaten to beat Donna herself if they keep trying to mess with his stuff. Make no mistake about it, if it's just the two of you trapped in this town, it's not gonna be long before you find yourself getting chained up onto a tree and inevitably suffering a fate that is infinitely worse than death, all because this dumbass was thinking, maybe you are a mole. I've been very honest about my feelings on Randall ever since I saw him, and it's no secret that I'm not a fan of this guy, and I've said this multiple times, but if I was Donna or Boyd, I would have killed him a long time ago. His behavior is completely unacceptable and causes fear and instability in the community, which is obviously something you don't want in this situation. Randall's shown himself to be a very violent, rude, and also extremely paranoid and impulsive person. These combination of factors and traits make Randall one of the worst people that you could ever find yourself trapped in Fromland with. And if you're smart, put him in a body bag as soon as you can before he ends up doing the same to you. Number 3, Reggie. Now, this is actually someone that you might have forgotten about, but this is the guy who ended up shooting Boyd at the end of season 2. But that isn't actually the reason I'm putting him on this list. Reggie, for the most part, was actually a decent guy, and he seemed very chill for almost all his appearances. But once the cicadas came into Fromland, Reggie became very unhinged. And that makes sense, because his girlfriend ended up getting broken by the cicadas. But in the process, his mind was also lost in the aftermath of that event. Reggie ended up paranoid, terrified, and unfortunately lost the ability to reason properly. While his feelings were actually justified and perhaps even expected, considering the true terror of the cicadas and the music box, and the fact that talismans cannot protect you from either, it's clear that Reggie snapped and went after Boyd because he blamed him for everything getting worse. I will give Reggie props for doing that though, because he was 100% right that Boyd caused the problems they were experiencing. But at the end of the day, what makes him crazy is the fact that he killed Matthias for no reason other than he was the one guarding the guns. Considering the circumstances, I just don't see that as a justifiable action. Killing Boyd is something that's logical and even understandable, but killing Matthias simply isn't. While his actions didn't get as many people killed as Kevin's did, it's still worse because Kevin didn't intend to kill anybody, while Reggie actively planned to kill two people, that being Boyd and Matthias. Reggie is someone who can't handle Fromland, and as we all know, those who can't bend themselves in this town will be snapped in half, and Reggie clearly wasn't very flexible. Number 2, Sarah. Sarah being on this list really isn't a surprise to either of us. In the first season of the show, Sarah kept taking some crazy actions time and time again, from killing Toby to opening the clinic and getting Kenny's dad killed by the monsters, and of course when she tried to kill the boy at the barn. Sarah is someone who has a history of gullibility and being easily seduced and coerced into killing the people of Fromland. And of course, she never does it in an upfront way, because then you'd have the possibility of saving yourself. The level of trust that the people of the community have with Sarah helps her be an incredible murderer, because no one would ever suspect her of doing any of those things that she does. And combine that with her obviously faulty mental health, that primes her for manipulation by the monsters or the voices, whatever, and she's a very dangerous person because of that. Sarah is definitely someone you don't want to be trapped in Fromland with, because if you ain't quick enough, you'll end up finding yourself busted open, just like what happened to Kenny's dad. So best believe me when I tell you, you better take her out before she gets the chance to do it to you. Number 1, Abby. I think it's fair to say that we both know all about Boyd's wife, and the fact that she completely ended up losing her mind in Fromland. Abby was someone whose mind simply could not adjust to this place, so she ended up going completely mental and incredibly crazy, going so far as to try to kill every single person in the town. Being a Boyd's wife for decades, this abrupt shift into becoming an absolute monster was obviously nothing like the Iron Abby that Boyd had spent decades getting to know, and nothing like the mother Alice grew up knowing. Abby's actions in Fromland have left a long-lasting impact on the community, on the town, and more importantly on Boyd and Alice. Because Boyd had to take her out, Alice developed some resentment towards Boyd for doing it, and that's understandable, I suppose. She was his mother after all. Abby broke not only the people who were living in the town, but she also broke Boyd and Alice's relationship for a long time as well. Due to the clear capability she has for violence towards the townspeople and therefore yourself, and the clear mental instability that Abby has, she is not someone that you want to be trapped in Fromland with. And if you do find yourself in that situation, for God's sake, make sure that you are strapped, my friend, because if you ain't, you are going to die. There's also someone else that I want to talk about, and this is someone that you may not have really thought about from the title of this video, but he's definitely someone to think twice about, and of course I am talking about Christopher. While we know very little about him and we've seen even less, it seems he was the one responsible for whatever actually transpired in Victor's massacre. That scene and how everything played out is definitely becoming a huge mystery for the show, and with the introduction of Eloise and Victor's mom and all of the things that come with that, it just changes everything that we knew about that event. But Christopher and Abby aren't even all that bad, at least not when you compare them to this person who's probably the most dangerous person in this town, and that is Boyd. Boyd is someone who just keeps making things more and more dangerous for the people in Fromland. This is because Boyd is someone who keeps looking for answers, and it's actually because of that reason that he's one of my favorite characters. But while Boyd did find the talismans, and that's one of the biggest W's the townspeople have ever gotten in the entire existence of Fromland, it's also obvious that Boyd's actions have gotten a lot of people killed because the town fights back when people try to escape, like the cicadas and music box were brought to town all because of Boyd's actions. And I wouldn't be surprised if the snow in season 3 was a punishment because of something Boyd did at one point or another in the story. So while Boyd has done a lot of good for the people in this town, he's more like a double-edged sword if you're someone living in this town. Sometimes he helps, other times he completely fucks everything up, and by the end of this show I can easily see Boyd getting way more people killed than either Abby or Christopher ended up doing. But at the end of the day, I'm more than glad to see that happen. I'm more than glad to make those sacrifices because I know it will be in the service of understanding the mysteries of Fromland. And obviously that's what I'm here for.